Welcome back to the podcast. We have Leah Marie Mazer on today. She is a divorce recovery coach whom I met on TikTok. Leah Marie, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi. So, like you said, Leah Marie, I'm a certified divorce recovery coach for women. So I specialize in helping women, especially moms, through the mental and emotional side of divorce so that they can heal and feel good again and move forward and really try to make their next chapter a great one.
Yeah, I love that. I love all of your posts and your videos and your lives. So I'm really excited to have you on today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited too.
So what are some of the top questions that you get from women going through this process?
Good question. So I would say a really common one is, how do you move forward, right? Like they know they want to move forward, but they still feel like they're still just kind of resisting the reality of what's going on, and they can't like take that next step. And so when you're trying to find acceptance so that you can move forward, a really easy tool to start with is trying to find the silver linings in things. Because when we're going through a divorce, when it's such a huge life transition and there is a lot of loss, right? You're going through a grieving process. It's easy to focus on those things, the things you're losing or the things that hurt. And when you do that, you're obviously not going to feel great. So to help you gain acceptance, you want to try to look at even small things that maybe you have now that you couldn't have before, or opportunities that you have now, or things that you don't have to deal with anymore that you used to. And when you can find things like that, it shifts the way that you feel. It gives you, it helps you feel more hopeful. It helps you kind of make peace with the situation.
I love that. I feel like I kind of jumped like too far forward. Where do people like normally begin in the process? How did you get into this line of work?
Yeah, so I'll take you back a little bit so that you can get a better understanding. When I was 16 years old, I actually witnessed my mom have an asthma attack in our home and pass away. So it was very traumatic for me. And then only 5 years later, my dad died of pancreatic cancer, and I'm an only child. So I was, by 21 years old, I was alone in the world trying to figure this thing called life out.
Wow.
And I didn't realize it at the time, but my coping mechanism was serial monogamy. I was just hopping from one relationship to the next. I did that for years because they were just like the buoys that kept me afloat. And after my second divorce, that's when I realized, okay, I've got to obviously do something differently. I'm caught in some kind of pattern that is not working for me. So I did a lot of self-reflection, all the stuff, therapy, journaling, meditation, I mean, everything you could think of, so that I could get myself to quote unquote the other side, so I can feel good about who I am, forgive myself for my mistakes, build my self-confidence and be able to stand on my own 2 feet. So after my journey, I essentially can just create a framework for other women who are going through the same stuff to give them the tools that work best for me to help them feel good again.
Yeah, wow. You made a lot out of your, I would say, very difficult journey and turned it into something helpful for yourself and other people.
Yeah, it feels good. It feels like that's my purpose, right? I can say, well, I went through all of these things because it led me here to where now I can help a lot of other people.
And then going through your personal divorces, how did that help you to become a divorce coach?
Well, I think a lot of my mistakes help me be a really good coach because I can really understand why women make the choices that they make, but I also know what happens when you make certain choices. So, for example, after my first divorce, I didn't do anything you're supposed to do. I did not take the time to heal. I was doing no self-reflecting. I was afraid of being alone. I had no self-esteem. So my main goal was, how do I find another person to love me? How do I get into another relationship? And so I hopped right into another relationship. A couple years later, when that one ended, I was right back on the dating apps again, trying to find someone else to love me. And then I rushed in that relationship, and he moved in like 3 months, and we were engaged at 8 months, and it was just like bing, bang, boom. And then here I was again in this relationship, and I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? And so I had to go through a divorce all over again. And so just knowing what happens when you skip those really important steps and how it could essentially, possibly lead to another divorce or another breakup. These are just things that nobody wants to deal with. And so I can help other women not have to learn the hard way.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've learned a lot in that your practice focuses on the recovery piece. So what
Yes.
are the aspects of recovery?
A lot of it, especially with moms, they have a lot of guilt. They have that mom guilt that haunts them. And so it's helping them work through that. Also tends to be anger, often anger and resentment for maybe things that their ex did or didn't do. And self-esteem. It always takes a hit, because we view ourselves as failures sometimes when we feel like we couldn't make a marriage work. And so then we hold on to those feelings, and we almost identify as someone who failed. Like if my divorce failed, then that means that that's me. It's how I'm defining myself. So those are a lot of the common things that I see.
Yeah. And I've seen that you have some recovery groups and you do one-on-ones.
I do. Yeah, I got lots of stuff. So I have free resources, a free empowerment guide and training video. So that's if you just want to get started on finding acceptance and building your self-esteem, you can download that on my website. I also have an amazing course, an online course that walks you through the entire healing process after divorce. Even in the when you're in the middle of it, it's still a lot of like how to make yourself a priority and practice self-care and de-stress and find balance. I offer one-on-one coaching, and then I've got a private support group too. So if you're a woman listening to this who wants to connect with an amazing group of women who are recovering from or going through a divorce, that's called Divorced and Empowered. You can come join. It's private. And then yes, actually, I teamed up with 3 other divorce coaches that specialize in different stages of divorce, and we run a monthly workshop called the Ultimate Divorce Workshop. So it's myself, it's Samantha Boss, who specializes in parenting plans, especially with high conflict exes, Ebony Byrne, who is a financial money coach, a divorce money coach for women, and then Alex Beatty, who is a divorce planning coach. So if you're in the early stages, like how to prep, what documents do I need? How do I get organized? That's what she covers. So it's all 4 of us. We teamed up to help you no matter what stage of the divorce you're in.
That's really awesome. I like that you have on multiple people who do different stages of the process, because there are different stages and different aspects of divorce.
Yes.
So for your part is the recovery part, but recovery doesn't just start at the end, it starts at the beginning even.
Yes. It's essentially, so, when you're going through a divorce, there's kind of 2 buckets. There's the business bucket, right? And then there's the emotional bucket. It's like, where do I put all these feelings? What do I do with how I feel and my thoughts about all of this? So that is my wheelhouse. It's like, okay, let's talk about how you feel and help you get to a place where you can find peace and find happiness again. So that could happen in the early stages, right in the middle of divorce, or even afterwards when you're ready to like start your new chapter. Because one of the things that I see a lot of women forget, and this is especially moms, right? Because we're taught to sacrifice our own needs, when we have kids, and even sometimes when we don't have kids, we're like, okay, we need to make sure everybody else is happy, everyone else has what they need, I'll put myself last. But when you're going through a divorce, that is one of the hardest things you're ever going to experience in your entire life. That is not the time to be putting your needs on the back burner. If anything, that is when you should be giving yourself the most love and the most self-care. Like, what are you doing to de-stress? What are you doing so that you don't feel so overwhelmed, right? Like, how are you showing yourself that care and that love and that respect? Are you getting quality sleep? That's huge. And that's something that so many people are not doing, but that affects how you regulate your emotions. That affects how reactive you are to what's going on in court or what's going on with your ex.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like that's what people often miss and neglect. They think, oh, I need to like put myself last, and I need to put the case first, or my kids first, and not seeing that it's not unselfish to put yourself first, because you need to do that to be able to do all the things you're expected to do.
Absolutely.
So if you could give us like a typical client of yours, what are things that they say? What questions do they have? What's their like typical experience?
Yeah. So a lot of times they struggle with low self-esteem and just not knowing how to be alone. Like, what do I do now? Right? I'm alone. My kids, maybe if I'm sharing custody, I don't have my kids for the weekend. What do I even do with myself? And so that's a great time to practice focusing on you. And so a couple of really good things. Number one is get some kind of hobby or creative outlet. It's so powerful because it's going to help you learn about yourself so you can help, figure out who you are. It builds your self-esteem, your confidence, and it opens up opportunities to meet new people, like-minded people that like to do the same stuff. Like for me, after my second divorce, I have always loved to sing, so I decided to join a band. So I loved it. It was so much fun. I looked forward to it. It gave me fulfillment. And so creative outlets are huge hobbies. And if you don't know what that is, then this is the time to try all the stuff. Like explore and experiment and discover all the different things, anything that maybe you didn't have time for before and now you have some time, or something you were interested in but didn't pursue. That's the time to play around with stuff and find what you like. And another really important step, because if you are dealing with low self-esteem or guilt or shame or feelings of failure, what that really comes down to are the conversations that you're having with yourself about yourself. It's that inner voice, that inner critic. So making sure that that is what you're honing in on and being mindful of what you're saying and what your beliefs are. And so journaling is a great way to kind of cultivate that self-awareness so that you can pay closer attention to what's going on in your own head. And using affirmations. Those are such a great tool because there are thousands of them on the internet for free, and they literally reprogram your subconscious. So the more you use them, the better you're going to start feeling. That's a great place to start when you're doing work on your own.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about affirmations? I know sometimes people have different ideas as to what they are and how well they
Yeah.
work. Can you go more into that?
Yeah, so they work extremely well. You can Google it. All the scientific research and studies have backed that up. And so essentially, so if you think about it like this, if you don't feel good about yourself, you're already using affirmations. They're just ones that don't make you feel very good about yourself. They're these beliefs that you repeat. So an affirmation is essentially some kind of mantra or sentence that you can speak out loud to yourself or write down in a journal, just as reminders of how to think or what beliefs that you want to have. So for example, if you are somebody who is scared of the unknown, right, or you're scared of being alone, then you can look up different kinds of affirmations or mantras centered around that, like something like, I am safe. I am exactly where I need to be. I have everything in me that I need to be successful. I am loved. I am worthy, right? And there's longer ones, there's shorter ones. You just have to find ones that resonate with you. And a good thing to remember is when you first start doing these, it's going to almost feel like you're lying to yourself if you're speaking these things that you don't really believe yet, but that's okay. A belief takes time. It's repetition. So the more you speak these things, the more you will believe them. And then it changes the way that you feel because all of your feelings start with the thoughts that you're thinking.
Yeah, that's really encouraging.
Good.
So we also hear a lot on the internet, especially on these different apps about narcissistic partners and how to
Yeah.
heal from toxic relationships. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah. So everything you read and hear, or if you're in therapy or anything anyone's going to tell you is if you're divorcing or a narcissist is to go no contact. And I've completely backed that information up. The problem with dealing with someone like that is that they have a habit of being manipulative and they gaslight and they make you think like you're crazy or they make you doubt yourself. And so you have to create that space between the two of you so that you can start coming back into your own and start listening to your own voice again and trusting yourself again. Now, if you share custody, and it's not possible for you to go completely no contact, then I would highly recommend keeping interactions only to what is absolutely necessary and keep things in writing. Don't have interactions in person, avoid interactions over the phone, use a co-parenting app or email, or last resort, a text message. And again, keep it like a business transaction. Keep your emotions out of it. Don't tell them how you feel. Don't talk about the things that you want. Keep it very, very simple so that you don't get kind of baited into having conversations or arguments that aren't going to get you anywhere or that end up just escalating.
Yeah, for sure. That's really good advice. And when you find people using that advice, do they give you feedback as to how it has worked or how it has gone for them?
Yeah, I mean, going no contact and limiting contact always works very well. Sometimes you may be met with some resistance, but that's them essentially just kind of having a tantrum because they're not getting their way. So you have to stay firm, make sure you're setting your boundaries and stick with it. And yeah, that's so one thing that somebody might have a hard time with is doing that. If you're somebody who has a hard time um, kind of letting go of that person. So you know they're a narcissist, you know they're not good for you, but you still love them and you still kind of wish that they would, they could make it work. That's when you should really seek more support, working with a therapist or working with a coach like me so that we can really get to the root of why you want to be with somebody who is unhealthy for you, because that's going to stem down to your own worth, your self-worth, and your self-esteem.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about parents who were not married. Do you also work with single moms who may have just broken up with their partner on their own recovery process as well?
Definitely. Yeah. And a lot of that is the same because I don't work with any of the legal aspect of the process. A lot of that recovery and healing and rebuilding, it's going to be the same tools, whether you are technically married or not. Mm-hmm.
So, what are some things you think people should avoid when they're in that recovery process?
So there's a few on my list. So the first one, which is a big one, and again, I learned this the hard way, avoid rebound relationships. So I know I get it. There's so many reasons as to why you might want to do that, whether it's just you're lonely or you're bored or you need a self-esteem boost or you feel like you've never been alone. You don't know how to not be in a relationship. But if you're looking for a healthy long-term relationship, it's not the right foundation to start that on because you're trying to fill some kind of a void. So you want to make sure that you take the time to get yourself to a place where you don't feel like you need a relationship. You can want one, you can prefer one, but needing one in order to feel whole or happy or fulfilled, that's not a good place to start. So that's number one is chill on the rebound relationships for a little while until you're in a good place. Another thing is make sure you're not avoiding feeling your feelings. Like I said, divorce is very hard and you're going to feel a lot of uncomfortable things. You're going to go through a grieving process. You're not just losing a partner, you're losing your identity. You're losing the future you thought you were going to have. Maybe you had to move out of the family house and you're grieving that. There's a lot. You have to just create that space and give yourself the time to feel those things. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. Let yourself kind of go there, because when you don't and you try to distract yourself or you push those things down, they don't go away. You just drag them further with you down the road and they will come out. But then it's usually at really inopportune times. You can kind of have a meltdown at work or you blow up at your kids or it comes out in the next relationship that you're in. So just, give yourself a beat, take some time to do the work to heal yourself so that you don't wind up having issues with it in the future. And then a third really important one, I know some of you guys aren't going to want to hear this, but avoid alcohol. Now, or limit, I could say, or really limit alcohol, because here's the thing, if you're going through something as difficult as a divorce and you're having a hard time regulating your emotions, or you're just sad or you're depressed, alcohol is a depressant. So you're only going to make things worse for yourself. And the next day, you're going to not feel any better. It's going to make it harder for you to feel better. You also might do things that you'll regret. I've had many clients come to me and say, oh, I drunk texted my ex and now we're like back in a war, or, oh my God, I slept with my neighbor and now I have to deal with him. And I shouldn't have done that. There's things that you might do that you wouldn't have done if you weren't drinking. And again, it's not helping. Let yourself feel the feelings. Don't distract yourself through alcohol, and so that you can heal and get through it.
I love those tips. Those are really good tips. I've had in cases where my client has ended the relationship with the opposing party, but during the case, they've started a new relationship. And that new partner, although the relationship could be going fine, most of the time messes up their case because the new partner wants to have an input, wants to show their value, wants to, whatever their motivation is. And it usually is not of benefit to the case. So on the legal
Right.
side, I'd also say these rebound relationships, even though these relationships from the perspective of the client aren't rebound relationships, but they are very close to the end of something else that we're litigating. But those new partners often are not a good influence on your case.
Yeah, they complicate things for sure. And it
Yes.
complicates your healing process too. I mean, I've had clients who thought that they found this great person, and then 3 months in, they wind up having to deal with another breakup. And sometimes that is even worse, right? Because you're in this vulnerable place, you're coming out of a divorce, you find this new relationship, and then if that one doesn't work out, that can spiral you into a place even lower than you were before.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you haven't healed and you're not doing the affirmations to really believe you're worthy and all of that, then you just reconfirm that negative thought that you have about yourself.
Yeah. And it's so important that you know your worth, because otherwise you're going to settle. If you don't know who you are and you don't know what you need, if you don't have high standards, if you don't have strong deal breakers, right? Like what are your non-negotiables? Then you're going to date and you're just going to kind of see, it's like spaghetti on the wall, right? You kind of just see what sticks. You want to start dating with a very clear idea of what you're looking for and the mindset of, are you what I want? Do you have what I need? Are you adding value to my life? Because if you're not, then I'm good. I don't need this to work out, right? You won't be attached to any outcome. It's a completely different space to be in, as opposed to showing up and going, oh, is he going to like me? Am I good enough for him? Is he going to not like me because I've been divorced and I have this baggage, right? It's like, no. You get yourself to a place where you feel good. You're not ashamed of your past, right? You know who you are and what you have to bring to the table. And that's going to change your whole experience.
Yeah, having a different mindset surely changes outcomes.
Yes.
I also like what you said about feeling your feelings.
Yeah.
That's a hard one for people to sit and feel the feeling like, okay, I'm feeling upset. Where do I feel it in my body? Is it in my head? Is it in my stomach? Like, does it make me want to go to sleep or run away? Like really feeling the feelings and seeing where you're feeling them in your body, what thoughts you're having with those to really examine like what's really going on.
Yeah, it's huge because it sucks, right? Nobody wants to feel those hard feelings. It's uncomfortable, but you really have to like force yourself to do it. Just accept what's happening and let yourself process it. And for me, after my second divorce, a tool that helped me so much was meditation. I got really into meditation, and this years later, I still do it regularly because it cultivates that self-awareness. It helps you become the observer of your thoughts so that your thoughts aren't just taking you for a ride, right? So just because a thought pops up in your mind, it doesn't make it true. Our brains lie to us all the time, and our brains pump out anywhere between 60 to 80,000 thoughts every single day. I mean, it's mayhem up there. So when you can get really good at just observing what's going on in your brain instead of just buying into everything that pops up, you'll find that you're not on that emotional roller coaster. You can kind of keep yourself more stabilized and not as reactive.
Yeah, that's excellent. Can you give us some advice as to like how to start meditating?
Yeah. So a really great app that I use, it's free. It's called Insight Timer. And I love it because there's tons of options on there. And if you're just getting started, I always recommend guided meditations because you can just pick like a 10-minute, guided meditation, sit down with some headphones or put your phone next to you in a quiet place. And all you have to do is listen. you don't have to try to do anything, right? You can just kind of sit there and listen to the voice and let them guide you through the meditation and do what they do. Or if you want to sit down, you can set a timer on your phone for 5 or 10 minutes. The thing to really remember is people who try to meditate, and this was me too, when I first tried, I thought it meant just clearing your mind. And so I could never do that. And so I thought, man, I just suck at this. I just can't do it. It's just not for me. But that's not true. You know, your brain is always, like I said, 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. You're not going to turn that off. Really, the idea is to just bring yourself to the present moment where you're not worried about the future and what's going to happen. You're not ruminating about the past. You're just here with your physical body in the present moment. And an easy way to do that is just pay attention to your own breath, right? Like we breathe all day, every day, but we don't really ever pay attention to it. It just happens.
Yeah.
But if you actually pay attention to the physical sensations of your breath coming in and out of your body, you're keeping yourself in the present moment. That is the bicep curl of meditation, is being able to bring yourself into the present moment.
That is so valuable. People talk about being in the present, but not really explaining it as well as you did. So that's a really good way to see that.
Good, good.
What are some things a lot of your clients are most anxious about or most sad about? What do you hear from your clients?
A lot of times it's not knowing what's next. Everybody's afraid of the unknown, right? And which makes sense. I mean, our brains aren't wired for the unknown. Our brains like to keep us in nice, safe, predictable situations. And so when we're kind of faced with this, precipice of, oh my God, anything could happen, we're like, all the alarms are going off and everything. So that's where it really comes down to just building your confidence and trusting in yourself that no matter what happens, you have everything you need to be able to overcome it or face it or figure it out.
Yeah. What are some of the things people are most sad about?
I think it depends on what happened in the marriage. A lot of people struggle with being without their kids when they're co-parenting. But some people are just really sad that their spouses left or their spouses moved on to a relationship quickly or their spouses were cheating. Anything that was a decision made by their spouse that made them feel like they weren't good enough, right? They weren't enough. And so if that's you, if you're listening, just be really careful that you're not making what your ex did mean something about you, because you are enough. And sometimes we're just with people who don't see that. It doesn't mean your value isn't there. It just means you were with somebody who didn't see it. And if they choose to do things, they chose to leave, if they chose to move on to another relationship, that doesn't mean that you don't have value and that you're not worth anything. And you deserve to be with somebody who doesn't need to be convinced of your value.
Yeah, what a valuable message. You are valuable. You are worth someone who can see your value. And it is not a reflection of you. It's more of a reflection of them, wherever they are. And we don't have to know what it means, but it doesn't mean we have to read something negative about ourselves because of what they did.
That's right. Yep.
I love that. So if you could pass on a few nuggets of wisdom, I know you've already shared a lot, but a few additional that you have, what would those be?
Yeah. Well, a big one is just to know that you're not alone. Divorce is so isolating. It's not often that someone's going through a divorce and then they know someone in their lives who's going through one at the same time. That's very rare. So you feel really alone, but you're not. And so please, connect with others. If you want to come join my group, Divorced and Empowered on Facebook, come join that. But when you connect with others and you have people to lean on, you have people to learn from, to ask questions, the people who have been there before you, it makes a huge difference. And it helps you build up that confidence to be able to move forward and know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Another important thing to remember is even though your friends and family have the best interest, and maybe they have some, I know, advice that they're trying to give you, just remember that sometimes it's not always the most practical advice. And so that's why it's good to maybe talk to, depending on what you need, a therapist or a coach, so that you have someone who could be more objective about your situation, somebody who's not emotionally invested in your relationship and can give you the right tools for where you are right now. And I say this because this often happens where a client of mine is going through a divorce and they've got friends who are just like, all right, girl, I'm going to get that dating app up and ready to go. Like, I want to see you back on the horse. I want to see you happy.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're coming from a place of love, but that might not be where she needs to go at that point in time, right? Maybe we need to like take some time to heal and figure some stuff out and self-reflect so we understand the role we played. You know, that's another thing, is make sure you're not just doing the blame game and like pointing fingers at your ex, even though there may be valid things there, but you did play some kind of role. Where were you mentally and emotionally when you started the relationship? What boundaries maybe were you not setting? What red flags did you miss or ignore? When you can do that and take responsibility for the role you played, that is what empowers you to make better choices in the future. So especially if you're somebody that's worried about how do I know I won't get into another relationship like this? How do I know I'm not going to miss these red flags, again? Well, you've got to do that self-reflection and understand your role too. It's not just about the other person.
That's so well stated, because a lot of times we don't look at ourselves and our own role and our own influence on a situation. And it's really cool the way you phrase that, because it wasn't victim shaming or victim blaming, but it was looking at like, what part did I play in this and how can I grow from where I'll say made some mistakes into being a different type of person, still myself, but a more developed, insightful person, to where I can maybe even impact the outcome of future relationships.
Definitely. Yeah. Pull that wisdom, right? Any experience, a divorce, anything that you're going through, there's wisdom there. There's something that you can take from that will help you moving forward, but you just have to take the time to look.
Yeah. And it sounds like being a part of your group also helps, because you're not like the best friend who's just like, oh, he was wrong and I can't believe he did this, and get back in the dating game. But you're also focused, or mostly focused, on helping that woman to recover and to get some insight and do some self-reflection and pick up some coping skills that, I mean, our friends are great, but our friends aren't often trained, or that's not really their role as friends, to show us how to do those things.
Exactly. Yeah. It's great to just get with people who get it. Yes.
Yeah. And it sounds like that's a benefit of being a part of a group or having a coach.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the group is great. I mean, I go in there once a week to do free workshops on different things too. I mean, so you're constantly getting guidance and support and tools. And then again, I mean, if you feel like maybe you want to work with a coach or just learn more about what that's like, I offer consultations. I mean, you can hop on a Zoom consultation with me for a whole 45 minutes and ask me anything you want. And I can give you some personalized tools and recommendations to help you going forward.
That is awesome. What is the best way for people to reach you?
So I'm on all the social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube. My handle is @mindfullyready. And then you can also just go to my website, which is mindfullyready.com. That's where you can grab that free empowerment guide. You can book a consultation. You could sign up for that divorce workshop, look into coaching or courses, and then also join my private support group.
Super good. Yay. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that information. Do you have any additional closing statements you wanted to make?
I just wanted to remind you that there is light at the end of the tunnel. If you're going through a divorce, I know that it seems like, oh my God, like what is coming next? How do I even get through this? How do I pick myself up again? I promise you will be able to. But sometimes it really just comes down to getting the tools that you need. Don't stay in the dark about it. Get all the information that you can, and it will help your healing journey move along that much more quickly.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, don't log off just yet, but thank you, Leah Marie, so much for talking with us today. I hope you guys will contact Leah Marie at mindfullyready.com and on all of the social media apps where you can find her. Her videos are always helpful and just like that message that you need. So thank you again.
Thanks for having me.